A few months ago, I had opened my notes app and found something embarrassing. The video idea I'd written down almost a year earlier. The title was still there, the concept was still there. In fact, some of the scripts were even there. And somehow, after all that time, it still wasn't a video. Not because I didn't know how to make it. I'd watched tutorials, I'd studied creators I admired, and even spent hours learning about hooks, retention, thumbnails, and storytelling. If anything, I had knew more enough than to get started. So why didn't I? That question actually bothered me than I expected. Because it wasn't just YouTube, there were other things sitting in that same category. Projects that I wanted to build, skills that I wanted to learn, ideas I've been thinking about for months. And the strange part that was I already knew what I needed to do. I just wasn't doing it. And so for a long time, I thought that gap was a motivational problem. I don't think that anymore. And once I understood what was actually causing it, starting became a lot easier than I expected. After finding the old video idea in my notes app, I told myself the same thing that I've told myself for months. Okay, this is the week I finally start. And for a few days, I actually believed it. I watched a few more videos, took a few more notes, thought about how I wanted the channel to look like, what kind of creator I wanted to be. And so it felt like progress. Then one evening, I sat down at my desk, I opened a blank document and stared at it for a minute. I knew what the video was about, I knew what I wanted to say. In fact, I spent months learning how other people did it, and somehow I still couldn't bring myself to start typing. A few minutes later, I closed the document, opened YouTube, watched another video about making videos. And if you've ever been stuck on something for a long time, you probably know how ridiculous that sounds. Learning how to do the thing instead of doing the thing. But that moment kept happening. And eventually I started wondering why. Because if the problem was motivation, that should have been enough. I was interested, I was excited, I wanted the outcome. So what's stopping me? The answer was uncomfortable. I wasn't waiting to feel motivated. I was waiting to feel certain that whatever I made would be good. And because that feeling never arrived, neither did the work. The gap wasn't between knowing and doing. The gap was between wanting something to be good and being willing to be bad at it first. The strange thing about that kind of fear is that it doesn't feel like fear while you're in it. It feels responsible. I remember one evening when sitting down at my desk with 3 tabs open. A breakdown of a creator I admired, an article about thumbnail design, and as well as a beginner's guide to camera settings. If someone had looked over my shoulder, they probably would have thought I was making progress. Even I too, myself, believed I was making progress. But when I look back on that night now, what stands out isn't what I was doing. It's what I wasn't doing. I hadn't opened a script. I hadn't recorded anything. I didn't make a single piece of the thing I said I wanted to make. And that became the pattern. I'd sit down intending to start, and somehow I'd end up doing something next to the work instead of the work itself. Another video, another article, another hour spent learning how to do the thing. It felt productive because I was moving, but I wasn't moving forward. The uncomfortable truth is that preparation can look almost identical to progress when you're standing still. Months went by like this, and because I was always learning something new, I never had the possibility that the real problem wasn't a lack of knowledge. It was just that I haven't given myself the permission to become a beginner. I don't know how long I would have kept doing that. But I remember one night sitting at the same desk, later than usual, and instead of opening another tab, I just stopped. I closed everything, the videos, the articles, the notes, and I sat there for a minute staring at my desktop. Then I asked myself a question I hadn't asked before. What is staying here actually costing me? Not what could I go wrong if I started. I thought about that enough. I mean, the other side of it, what was costing me to wait another month, another week, another evening spent learning about the thing instead of doing it? Because I always treated waiting like it was neutral, like I was standing still, like the clock wasn't running until I decided to begin. But that's not what was happening. Every month I waited was a month with no footage, no real feedback, no mistakes to learn from, no evidence that I was getting better. I kept telling myself I was preparing to become the kind of person who could make good videos. But the truth was, the person could only be built through the videos I wasn't making. There wasn't a shortcut. There wasn't a tutorial that could replace the experience. Not at all. In fact, there wasn't one more piece of information that was suddenly going to make me ready. And that was the part I finally had to accept. I wasn't avoiding bad videos. I wasn't avoiding being a beginner. And in the process, I had quietly spent a year postponing the only thing that could make me better. Once I saw that clearly, I couldn't really go back to the way I was thinking before, because up until that point, I'd been treating starting as the risky option. If I made a video, it might be bad. If I launch a project, it might fall. If I put something out into the world, it might fall short of what I imagined. That was the cost I thought about every day. What I wasn't thinking about was the cost of sitting on the other side. I remember looking on the dates where that old notes and realizing almost a year had passed. A year. And somehow that felt more uncomfortable than the idea of making a bad video. Because a bad video would be at least be a video. It would teach me something, give me a feedback, give me a place to start from. But waiting had given me nothing, no experience, no progress, no evidence that I was getting any better. Just another year of imagining. And that's when something flipped. I realized that I'd been comparing a visible cost against an invisible one. The visible cost was embarrassment, and the invisible cost was time. The visible cost felt bigger because I could imagine it so clearly. But the invisible one was quietly growing every day I waited. I think that what closes the gap for a lot of people, it's not about confidence, it's not about courage, or any sort of burst of motivation, but just finally seeing both sides of the calculation at the same time. Because when I did that, starting stopped feeling like the risky option. Waiting did. Now, I'm not going to just tell you to just start, because I myself spent months hearing that, and it actually never helped. Because when you're genuinely stuck, the problem isn't that you don't know what to do, it's just that something keeps stopping you from doing it. Looking back, there are only two things that actually moved me forward. The first was getting honest about what I was afraid of. For months, I had better sounding explanations. I needed a better setup, I needed more experience, I needed more time. I wanted to make sure that I had something worth saying. When I stripped all of that away, the fear underneath was surprisingly simple. I didn't want to make something and discover it wasn't as good as I imagined. I didn't want to be a beginner. And once I admitted that to myself, sitting alone at the desk one evening, it became harder to hide behind all of those explanations. Because now I knew what was the real problem. The second thing was forcing myself to look at both sides of the trade. Not just what it would cost me to start, what it will cost me to keep waiting. Another month, another 6 months, another year. More ideas sitting in Notes app, more videos watched instead of made, more time imagining a future version of myself instead of becoming one. And when I finally put both of those costs next to each other, the answer became a lot clearer. Starting still felt uncomfortable, but waiting no longer felt safe. But here where a lot of people land. They get honest about the fear, they look at both sides, and they decide that waiting isn't safe anymore. And when they sit down to actually begin, they hit a different kind of wall. Not the emotional wall, that's gone, but the practical one. Too many possible first steps, no clear direction, no obvious place to put your hands and start building. That's the next problem, and it's a different one from everything we talked about today. The next video is about exactly that. Not mindset, not motivation, just a practical answer to one question. When you genuinely don't know where to start, what do you actually do first? That one is up next.